Morning, guys. How are you? Welcome, 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 welcome. Okay, guys, so we're going to get into it today. We're going to go over that stuff, and then we're going to talk a little bit about. Dan, can you confirm that you're on before I just start yapping to myself? So I know you guys are there. We're talking about a couple of things today, guys. Guys, while you're on, can you just confirm that you're there? We're good. All right. Thanks, Ryan. All right, guys. Okay, so as we go through this today, we're gonna do two things, and then next week, guys, we're gonna move in. I want to make sure again that everybody is able to participate in some of these practice sections. So later in March, as I said before, you guys will have I'm gonna be back out in Denver, and we're gonna proctor a practice test on Saturday like we did before. But one of the things I want to do is I want to make sure everybody, because we keep assigning these sections for homework, so I want to make sure that everybody's ready to go. So we're going to incorporate something new, and it's something that we don't typically do in these classrooms, but I think it's going to work well. We're going to incorporate practice sections into this class. Now, we can't do the first or the last one because those are too long, but we can do the math without a calculator and the writing and language during the class period, so I know then that everybody's going to be done with it, so everybody does it. So that's something that we're going to start next week. We're just going to do one section on a Wednesday because you guys have a little bit more time. Then we'll have 25 minutes left at the end of the class to kind of talk about it, to discuss, right? So that's going to be one. And then on Thursday, we're going to go through every section of that test. We're going to get a feel for that today. You guys kind of got a feel for it yesterday when we did those practice passages for the writing. We're going to go over that, and then we're going to do some math stuff today. So let's start with the writing section. We'll go over it together, and then we're going to jump into this math concept. But I really want you guys now to be getting, we've covered a lot of material, which is great. We're 12, this is our 12th class, if you guys can believe it. It's not as exciting without, being there with you guys like last week, but we'll have to make do, right? But remember your homework, and I'm going to send this to Dan. Your homework for this weekend to start is to watch the reading and writing and language videos on YouTube. I'm going to send these to Dan. That's it for this weekend, writing, language videos. And the good news is it's hard to track that homework, right? But when remember the last week or 2 weeks ago, I think it was, on a Wednesday, I said who watched the video. It didn't seem like anybody had, but then you guys watched it Wednesday night, and on Thursday, you guys had a million great questions. The same thing with whoever asked some of those questions yesterday. I think there were two really good ones. Same thing. So we're gonna make sure that this is the only priority, and then the way that we're gonna track this is I'm gonna have you guys do 3 questions, 3 observations like we've talked about in the past. But I'm going to make sure that it's written in the front of your book. So Dan or whoever's with you guys that day will have a pretty good sense as to who actually watched the videos and who wrote down observations. Like we saw last week when I was there with you guys, it's really kind of easy to see who's doing this stuff and who's not, just based on the participation. So I want you guys to all be participating. It was great interaction last week. I loved it. Without me being there though, without me being kind of present for that, it's hard to tell who's in it. Other than to say that you guys, whoever asked those questions yesterday was awesome, was great. So that was awesome. And then on top of that, again, we're going to do these practice sections. So for right now, let's go over that main ideas passage that you guys had yesterday. So main ideas passage that you guys had yesterday was writing language. Remember, it was the next section down. Oh, guys, somebody had a question, by the way. If you guys go to page, this is that main ideas writing and language section. If you guys turn to page 256, somebody had a question about number 10. Okay, I didn't get a chance to answer it, and Dan, I apologize to Dan after. I just ended the video, and somebody had a comment on this. So let's real quick go to number 10 from yesterday. Okay, it was the one that asked about the writer wants a conclusion. This is on 256 for you guys in your book. The writer wants a conclusion that emphasizes the continued popularity of Schrodinger's experiment. Which choice best accomplishes this goal? So it's a really hard question because I think most of you guys put B. Many people erroneously assume that Schrodinger agreed with the ideas of large-scale superposition. Remember that this whole thing is talking about Schrodinger's cat, the experiment, right? It's a really weird one because it says in that sense at least one could say that the cat definitely lived. If you read that passage for content, while that sounds like a weird correct answer for answer choice A, the cat, right? So it says that is if we just go back a little bit for number 10 again on page 256 for anybody that had any questions on that one. It says that is reality is split into one world where the observer is looking into a box with a live cat and another world where the observer is looking into a box with a dead cat. For example, it goes without saying that these different outcomes cannot interact with each other. In any case, Schrodinger's thought experiment is still discussed in physics classes around the world. In that sense, at least one could say the cat definitely lived. Okay, so the cat definitely lived. They're talking about the fact that the thought, this experiment, right, lived in these classes. Okay, so for anybody that was confused, with why the answer was A for number 10 yesterday, it says emphasizes the continued popularity. So the reason they're saying the cat lived, it lived theoretically because students were still learning about it in these physics classes. Ryan or Dan, whoever's on, can one of you guys just confirm that everybody understands that? Because it lives in its essence, I guess, right? The popularity, the demonstration that this thing is still popular is because the cat lived like theoretically in these physics classes because everybody's still talking about it. That's by far the hardest question on that passage. Okay, and the word popularity is really the thing that you guys want to try to address, because if you chose answer choice B, that doesn't have as much while that might be true, it doesn't have anything to do with the popularity of this whole experiment, and that's why we have to eliminate answer choice B. So can you just confirm that everybody gets that? Somebody asked a question about number 10. Dan typed it in at the very end of the class yesterday, and then I just ended it. So whoever asked that question about number 10, it's a good one, but I just wanted to make sure we covered that to start before we got into the new chapter. Okay, and then you guys, on the very next page for your homework, you guys had some homework on another practice passage. Okay, so I'm going to read these answer choices off. This was the second practice passage, just the next page. So number one is C, as in cat. So C, A, D. This is again on page 258, starting on 258. So again, C, A, D. 4, 5, and 6 are D, B, B. 7 and 8 are B and D. Again, B as in boy, D as in dog. And then the last ones on the last page, 9, 10, and 11, are D, A, D again. That's coincidental. D, A, D for those last ones. Ryan, any questions on those ones? Those were those from the practice passage that I wanted you guys to do last night. While you guys are asking those questions, actually, I've changed my mind on this. You guys are still going to watch this video, but we're gonna have a chance to see kind of who's responding maybe and who's not. So for watching this reading, writing, and language video, guys, you guys are going to still watch it. Watch, read, reading, and Dan's going to have these writing and language videos. Okay, but we're going to see who's going to send this stuff in. So I've asked you guys for the homework, and this is just keep asking your questions, Ryan. Go over 11. Okay, we can go over 11. Real quick, guys, when you guys watch these videos, I'm going to have you guys send 3 observations while you watch. 3 observations. Okay, and 3 questions about the video. About each video. for each video. So you guys have to watch it. Whoever watched the reading video yesterday, that's great. If you guys want to watch, if you guys have already watched these, clearly some of you have. If you've already watched these videos, then we have the math, right? The math and the math no calculator, math with a calculator. Okay, so you guys can keep watching. Feel free to watch those videos if you've already watched these ones. Okay, and even if you've watched all of them, watch them again. And I want you guys to send your 3 questions and 3 observations in an email to admin@startutors.net. So I'll send this to Dan. But this is going to be, so we're going to see participation levels today, or this weekend for sure. Okay, so let's go over number 11. Okay, so number 11 says, which choice most effectively concludes the sentence and the paragraph? Okay, so again, remember that on these ones that we talked about yesterday, when you see these questions, you have to go back and reread on all of them. If you watch me do that Schrodinger's cat one for number 10 there on that last passage, I went back and reread like 4 sentences before to figure out what was going on when that was leading into that sentence. Same thing goes here. If you've memorized all of your grammar rules, which are 30 of the 44 questions on this test, then all of those questions become like 10 to 15, 10 to 20 second questions. And even though you have 40 seconds for each one of those, because they're 10 to 20, it gives you every opportunity to spend as much time as you need on these questions because there's only 14 of them and you've made up so much time. So on number 11, it says, I'm going to go back to the very beginning of this paragraph. People love a good controversy. After the article was published, vaccination rates in Britain dropped from 92% to 73%. In the United States, an estimated 125,000 children did not receive the MMR vaccine. Children did not receive the childhood diseases that had been nearly eradicated had reemerged. One 2011 journal article described the vaccine-autism connection as the most damaging medical hoax of the past 100 years. And yet, many apprehensive parents, okay, apprehensive is the right word there, still chose not to vaccinate their children. The safety of vaccination has been confirmed by scientists, but parents recognize that scientists are not infallible. Okay, so which choice most effectively concludes? So number 11 is tricky. The first thing, and again, remember these questions are very similar. They're actually easier than the reading questions, but similar. So the first thing that you want to see is on this passage, the tone of this passage is not to criticize parents, right? It's relatively neutral. It's not criticizing. It's not negative towards parents or scientists. Okay, it's just stating the facts, and it leans negative a little bit, but I don't think it's here to criticize parents. So remember, but parents recognize that scientists are not infallible. That doesn't really have anything to do with what we just read. It's saying that there's a disconnect between what scientists are saying and what parents are hearing, and so there's some disconnect there, and that's really what we're trying to go for if you reread that paragraph. Okay, so answer choice B says, and soon enough, parents will get the message. When you say get the message, so answer choice B, that's pretty negative towards parents. Ryan, can you confirm that everybody sees that? That the tone of that, right, and we talked about tone a lot with the reading section, the tone of that is pretty negative towards parents, that like, you got to get the message, right? There's some disconnect there, and I don't think anybody's blaming anybody. We're trying to figure out why that is. Okay, answer choice C, and the same thing goes for answer choice A. So A was negative towards scientists, right? That they don't know everything. This is the scientist negativity, right? And this one was the parents. Does everybody see that? Okay, this is parents negativity. Answer choice C then, we're looking for a relatively neutral tone. I don't think anybody's blaming anybody. But only time will tell if the benefits of vaccinations outweigh their potential side effects. Okay? I think that is not, so I don't think that has anything to do because they're saying that they don't, that enough medical research has been done that they don't. So I think that this is false, with at least what the passage says, false according to passage. Okay? False according to passage. And then answer choice D, okay, says, but good news it seems travels much slower than bad news. That's neutral. They're not blaming anybody, right? They're saying that the good news that they found that vaccinations don't actually be right, that the science is behind that vaccinations are still a good thing. They're saying that that's good news, but parents aren't receiving the message, and somehow there's a disconnect between the science and what the parents are willing to do for their children. But that's neutral. That's not blaming anybody. So based on tone alone, we can go with D as answer D for number 11. Okay, is that good? Okay, hopefully that makes sense, guys. All right, so one of the things that we're going to do today, we're going to jump into math, and a lot of this over the course of the next month, because we've learned a lot, hopefully you guys have learned a lot, okay, is we're really going to focus on these concepts and reviewing them together and making sure that you guys have an opportunity to practice those while we're together. Okay, so one of the things we talk about a lot with this math section, and I'll tell you where you're going to go here in a second, is we talk about this 3-pass idea, right? And this 3-pass idea that we talked about last week while I was there is that you're going to answer on the math section the questions that you 100% know how to do on pass number 1. Okay? The whole idea of this pass method, so this is pass 1, this is a really easy way. The reason we do this, the reason that we do this on the math section is so that you guys can see every easy problem that you want. This was largely born from how I took the test, how I still take the test when you guys watch the videos. This is how I took the test in high school. It was largely just about laziness. When I was in high school, this strategy here works on pretty much nothing except for this standardized test like this. Okay, so when you're lazy and you only want to do the easy stuff, whatever's easy, right? You just skip things that are hard. Okay, and so this is largely born just how I would take the test in high school. It works out well on a test like this. Okay, as long as you've memorized the concepts. I lucked out because my mom's a longtime math tutor and teacher, so she was just constantly doing practice problems when I was like from 1st to 8th grade. I lucked out in that sense. If you don't feel great about math, you got to review now. Okay, but still, when I went into the test, if I hadn't learned something, I'd just skip the problem and I wouldn't think about it for any more than I needed to. And the reason that works so well, it obviously doesn't work if you're trying to get a 1600, but if you're trying to still get a really strong score, if you're trying to get a 1500 even, if you know a lot of the concepts and you're just shooting for 1500, you can skip 10 to 15 questions on any test and still get a 1500. And that's the kind of stuff that I used to do as a kid. And that's amazingly helpful in this sense. So again, when you're past 2, when you've gone through past 1, this is a really like roundabout way of saying just do the easy problems. Okay, so if you're struggling on a problem, you got to challenge yourself to move on, not challenge yourself to try to get that problem right. Do the easy problems. If you only answer the easy problems, okay, Olivia, again, I don't mean to embarrass you, but this is a great example of this, and I'm thrilled. If you guys can focus on this idea that when she, on the reading section, I keep coming back to that, where she just was okay bubbling in the last 12 answers, completely being like, well, whatever happens, happens. That's great on the reading section. It's even more important to do on the math section. And the reason for that is because you're not going to learn, in the reading section, it's all context. You don't have to come in with any prior knowledge. On the math section, you do. You have to know how to factor. And if you don't know how to factor on that day, then you have to learn it on the next day after the test, but you're not going to learn it in the 1 minute that you have to solve a problem. Okay, so do the easy problems first. Immediately skip the hard ones. If you guys get 10 out of 20 on this test, but you know those 10 out of 20 on the math no calculator section, so there's no calc, right? But you know those 10 out of 20 questions are 100% right, that's great. We know exactly where you stand, and we've hit that floor that we keep talking about. We know that every time you can get this score. That's what we're shooting for. Okay, and then on this past 2, you come back, right, and you try some of the harder ones. Answer some of the harder questions on this past 2, right? And then on past 3, it comes back to this final idea, right? On this past 3, you're going to be okay skipping questions. Again, you want to bubble in everything. Don't make sure that you're just not leaving things blank. Even if it's on the student-produced response questions where you have to grid in, at least grid in something, right? Even if it's a wildly unlikely chance that you get that question right, still bubble in something. Okay, you're going to be okay guessing on questions. Okay, guessing if you have no idea what the question is talking about, and it's a fine line. It can't be one of those things like when you say to Dan's like, well, what were you doing on the test? Because your score went down. It can't be one of those things where like, Chase told me to skip every question. It's a fine line between skipping every question and working through problems, because there are going to be some hard ones, but you guys can get those right. It's a fine line, and the only way to really recognize the difference between 2 and 3 is to keep working on practice problems, and that's what we're going to do today. But be okay guessing, because if you have no idea how to do a problem, and you get 1 minute and 15 seconds, You get 1 minute and 15 seconds per question on the math. Okay, and I want everybody to be writing this down. In fact, can everybody turn, just so you guys have a chance to write some notes down, can everybody turn to page 264 for me, just a couple pages ahead. Okay, you guys get 1 minute and 15 seconds per question. So let's say that on past 3, you have 5 questions on the no calculator section, 5 questions that you have no idea what's going on. Well, guess what, guys? If you take those 5 questions and you multiply it by 1.25, which is 1 minute and 15 seconds, that means that you get over 6 minutes. Okay, you get 6 minutes and 15 seconds to add on to the other 15 questions. Okay, so you get 15 out of 20, and that's like a 650 to a 700 score on the math section, which is phenomenal. You get 15 out of 20, and you don't even have to worry about any of the hard questions. Imagine if you got that. Imagine if your math teacher today in school, and then we'll do some practice problems. Imagine if your math teacher today in school said, hey, you only have to answer 75% of the questions. You have to get a C on this test, 15 out of 20, 75%. Okay, I'm going to give you extra time on those 15 as long as you skip the hardest problems that you don't know how to do, and I'm going to give you an A. If I told you that in school, if your math teacher told you that today in school, you'd be like, that's got to be a joke, right? That is truly, a 15 out of 20 is like a 650 to a 700 on the math section. That's in the top 10%. That's an A- on this test. Okay, if you just skip all the hardest problems. I mean, again, if you guys can get it, it's hard because you've learned a different way. Test taking in school is much different than a standardized test like this. Okay, but if you guys can understand what we're trying to accomplish by only getting easy questions right and making sure that we don't have any simple mistakes, you're going to do phenomenally well in this test on every section, but on the math in particular because it's really easy to identify hard problems on math. It's like if you read through it and you have zero idea what they're talking about, if you've never done the unit circle before and they start asking you about, what's sine at 30 degrees and you've never seen the unit circle before, that's a pretty easy one to be like, nope, I have no idea what's going on. And you just skip it, right? That's how we have to be thinking about this. Okay, so we've done a lot of concept review, which is great. So what I want everybody to do now is I'd like everybody to turn to page 551. 551. Okay, I'm going to leave all this stuff up on the board. Page 551. Okay? Okay, and on 551 to 554, there are questions for the no calculator section. So 551 to 554, there are questions for the no calculator. Okay? We're going to do these. I think there's 9 of them. Let me count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, here's the deal, guys. I don't care for 1 second. If you have a friend that's asking you how many questions you got right, I don't care for 1 second how many questions you got right. Not for one. The only thing that I care about when we go through this, you're going to get about 12 minutes to do these questions. Okay? The only thing that I care about is on the questions that you answer. If you answer a question, you are 100% right. If you leave, out of 9 questions, if you leave 8 of those questions blank, but you get 1 of the questions right and you know you got it right, and you get 100%, that's it. That's all I care about. Okay, again, I want you to battle through this. I don't want you to be skipping problems just because you think that I said you can skip everything. Okay, I want you to battle a bit, but I want you to know that I don't care for 1 second if you guys only get 2 of these 9 questions right, as long as on those 2 you knew exactly what to do. And then it's my job on those remaining 7 questions to teach you how to do those. So maybe next time instead of 2 out of 9, you get 4 out of 9. And that's 20 more points that you guys can get right. Okay, Ryan, Dan, can you guys give me a thumbs up if all this makes sense before we get going here? You guys will get 12 minutes. And again, all I want you to be thinking about is how do I find the easiest questions? If I read through something and I'm not 100% sure of it, let me move on and I can always come back. Because if I have questions at the end, I know I've spent the time I was going to spend on those. If I've immediately moved on from those hard questions, I can put that time towards the easy ones and know with 100% certainty that I'm not making simple mistakes, that I'm getting those questions right. Okay? Everybody good with that? You guys are doing great. Okay, so like I said before, guys, I'm going to set the timer for 12 minutes. Gives us kind of a perfect amount of time here. Set the timer for 12 minutes. Okay? And you guys can start. So no calculator. Don't use your calculator. 551 to 554, those 9 problems. Work as hard as you can to get through all of them, but skip the ones you don't know. Your time is going, so keep working, and then we'll go over them. You guys have about 2 minutes left. Keep working. Work all the way up to the end of the time. All right, guys, that's time. That is time. So here's what we're going to do. Again, those were 9 questions. Okay, hopefully everybody was able to go over those. Hopefully everybody was able to get through as many as they could. Again, the thing that you have to think about is that the number of questions you answer correctly is the number of questions that you answer correctly, that you answered. So not the number of questions that you answered correctly overall, but just the ones that you answered is the only thing that I'm really concerned about. We can get better at this. Okay, we can get better. The one thing that I can't control, the one thing that makes me the most nervous for 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, is the ability to make simple mistakes. Because I can teach you guys this stuff. I've done this enough. I've seen enough students. We do these YouTube videos. This is my life. This is what I do every day. So I know I can teach you guys this stuff. But what I can't do is when you get to the real test, I can't have you avoid simple. I can't help you with that. It's got to be this desire to want to stay focused, to want to grind it out, to want to get the next question right. And I mean this in the best way possible, but there's going to be somebody sitting next to you, and that person's score is going to reflect on the scale just like yours is. This is not against the test. You are not being graded on the test. You are being graded against everybody else in the country. And so in the best way possible, the kid sitting next to you, you got to want to be competitive. You got to want to beat that score. That was the only thing that I had going for me when I was a kid is I was a horribly lazy student, but when it came kind of face-to-face, one-on-one, that's all I wanted to do was prove I could do it better. And in the moment, I didn't put any of the hard work in that you guys are right now, and I wish I would have. But in the moment, I was really good about staying focused and wanting to be involved, wanting to get questions right. Part of this is focus and desire. Again, we keep coming back to these sports analogies, but you can use any of them, right? That these people just grind it out. I don't know if you guys probably don't know about anything about comedians, but Jerry Seinfeld, I'm sure you've heard the name. He was a big comedian right back in the day. Jerry's still kind of famous, but Jerry Seinfeld used to memorize all of his comics, all of his comedian speech, all of his stand-up routines for comedy. If you guys are into comedy, right, he would memorize every word and cut out, and then he'd listen to it back on a recording, and then he'd cut out all of the ums. So he'd record himself giving his stand-up routine. He'd listen to it. He'd write out every word of the routine on that recording. He'd stop and start it, and then he'd cross out all the times that he said so that wasn't there anymore in his next time when he went up. That's amazingly hard work. And that's what you guys are doing. I want you to keep working at this stuff. I don't want you to lose motivation just because you got a bunch of other things going on in your life. Who am I going to ask to prom? What's the next, what time to practice today? Those are the things I thought about. And for this test or for your future, this matters. For better, for worse, this matters. I want you guys to remember that. I want you guys to battle. I want you guys to work hard every time, okay? You guys are doing such a great job, and I could see it last week, and a lot of these questions that you guys are asking are great. I want everybody to be doing that. Okay, so let's go over this together. Okay, let's go over this together. I'm going to read off the answers, and then we can go over any questions that you guys have. Okay, so number two rather. Number 2 is B, as in boy. Number 2 is B. Number 5 is C. Number 7 is A. Number 8 is D. It's a good one probably to go over if you guys have any questions about number 8. Number 11 is C. Remember, this is 11 out of 15, and the questions are getting harder. So 11 out of 15, that's a pretty hard question, as are the next two. 13 and 14 are really important questions because we've talked about them in the past with that word equivalent. We can go over 13 and 14 as well. 13 is C. 14 is D. Moving on to the last page, 15. This is 15 out of 15, so it's going to be hard. This is what we're covering with those line expressions. Y equals mx plus b. 15 is D. And 19 is x equals 3. Okay, or DE rather. DE equals 3. Okay, so what do we think, guys? What questions do we need to go over? Do we need to repeat any of those? Okay, do we need to repeat any of those? Let's go over any questions that you guys have. Ryan, let me know what they want to go over, and we'll do the problems on the board before you guys start school. Okay, 13 and 14, that's great. I'm glad that you guys asked those questions. So let's start with those. Ryan, if there's other questions that we need to go over, let me know, okay? But yeah, let's start with those. That's great. Okay, guys, so the big thing with 13 and 14 that we have to make sure that we're paying attention to Remember, guys, when we talked about this word equivalent. Okay, and I said that if you guys don't know how to do a question, but you see this word equivalent, it means immediately that you can plug in numbers. Okay, if you see the word equivalent, and it's a very common word particularly on the no calculator section, you guys can plug in numbers. Okay, so this is going to take a little mental math, but it's certainly easier than having to solve for a common denominator. Number 14 is actually really easy if you use this word equivalent. 13 is actually harder than 14. Okay, so which of the following is equivalent? So can everybody please, on the bottom of 553, in as big a bold letters as you can, because this is 13 and 14. These are level 3 questions, and you have to know zero math other than multiplication and addition in order to solve them. Zero. Basic multiplication, basic addition is all you need to know to solve these problems. Okay, the word equivalent is the key. So if we see the word equivalent, in number 13 it says x has to be greater than 0. Okay, so if we're going to plug in numbers, we just have to plug in a number that's greater than 0, and you'll remember that I like to plug in the number 3. Okay, and so we're just going to plug in that number for x. X equals 3. If you look at the expression on top, it says 4x plus 5 over 1 over 4x plus 1 over 5. 1 over 4x plus 1 over 5. Let's plug in the number 3, right? X equals 3. So we get 4 times 3, this is on top, plus 5. Okay, 4 times 3 is 12, plus 5 is 17. Okay, and then on the bottom, we get 1 over 4 times 3 plus 1 over 5. Okay, so we get 1 over 4 times 3, that's 1 over 12. So on the bottom, we get 1 over 12 plus 1 over 5. Okay, so that doesn't really help us, right? Because we have 1 over 12 plus 1 over 5. Now what? Okay, but here's what we can do. We can solve for a common denominator. Okay, so a common denominator, whenever you have fractions, you can solve using a common denominator. You just multiply this fraction by this number, so times 12, and that's pretty easy, right? Because you just have a 1 on top. And this is times 5, so you get 5 over 60, right? 5 times 1 is 5, right? 5 over 60, and you multiply this by 5 as well. This times 12 over 12, because that 12 over 12 is just 1, plus 12 over 60, right, is equal to 5 plus 12 is 17 over 60. So guys, you can see that the SAT is not trying to trick you. They're trying to lead you to the right answer. It's not a coincidence that we got 17 over 60. Okay, so right now then we have 17 over 60. My sister tutors for us as well. I was just talking to her about this. If you have 17 over 60, everybody forgets about this rule that, again, kind of goes back to this idea that we've been talking about. The SAT is not trying to trick you. 17 with the line 17 divided by 17 over 60 is just the same thing as 17 over 1 divided by, with the right sign that you learn in like the 2nd or 3rd grade, divided by 17 over 60. Okay? If you remember, we flipped the second number, so 17 over 1 times 60 over 17. Now look at this, the 17s cancel, and all of a sudden we get the number 60. And now all we have to do is we have to go plug in our answers to find which of those answers, given that x equals 3, and it's pretty easy because you guys can see on the answer choices, right? If x equals 60, if the number equals 60 and x equals 3, answer choices A and B can immediately be eliminated because we're looking for the number 60, not for the number 1 or 2. If you look at answer choice C, 20x, 3 times 20 is 60. So the answer is C. Guys, so this might seem complicated, but I just want you guys to remember that if you see the word equivalent and you plug in the number 3 for any of these problems, you're going to see it on the next one too. All of this, right, finding a common denominator, flipping the second number and multiplying, or I think it's called like keep, flip, switch or something. There's another new way to solve for it. But we used to say flip the second number, 17 over 60, and then multiply it. The 17 cancels, and you're just left with 60, and you can just plug in x equals 3 for the answer choices, and it becomes very easy to figure out. Ryan, can you give me a thumbs up if everybody sees this? If you plug in x equals 3, the bottom line is, though, you're multiplying here, you're finding a common denominator, right, using just basic fractions, 1 over 12. You're multiplying, then you're adding. So the point is that you're just on one of the hardest questions that you'll see on the SAT math section. All you're doing is basic operations that you would have learned all of these in 4th grade, probably. And then you're just plugging them into the answer choices. You're plugging x equals 3 and you're figuring out which one equals the same thing as the number that you got. So 13 was actually harder in this case. 13 was actually harder than number 14. We're going to do the same thing on number 14. Okay, 14 says, which of the following is equivalent, okay, 2x squared plus 3x, 2x squared plus 3x over 2x plus 1, 2x plus 1. Okay, again, guys, x is equal to 3. We see the word equivalent, so we can plug in the number. Okay, so we plug in x equals 3, we get 2 times 3 squared plus 3 times 3 over 2 times 3 plus 1. Okay, 3 squared is 9, times 2 is 18. 3 times 3 is 20, is 9. 18, right? This is 18 if you do all the math. This is 9. Okay, be careful on that. This is equal to 27. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So our number is 27 over 7. Okay, 27 over 7. If you look at the answer choices, this is the exact number we want to get, 27 over 7. Or if you guys can do the math, 7, right? 7 times 3 is 21. So we can reduce this to 3, right? 3 is 21 over 7 and 6/7. Ryan, can you confirm that everybody sees how we get that mixed number there? 27 over 7 is just equal to 3 and 6/7. Either one of those works. If you look at the answer choices, plugging in, again, x equals 3. A is 3 plus 3. That equals just regular 6. That's not 3 and 6/7. B, 4 times 3, that's 12. That's not 3 and 6/7. On answer choice C, you get 3, right? Answer choice C says 3, right? Because it's x minus 3 minus 1 over 2x, 2 times 3 rather, plus 1. Now, guys, you can do out the math, but if we're subtracting 3 is our number, and we're trying to get to 3 and 6/7. If you guys recognize this, 3 minus anything is going to be less than 3 and 6/7. Okay, so right away, if you just set this problem up and plug it in, and we know what the number we're trying to get, if you just stop there, you know answer choice C doesn't work, so it has to be D by default. Coincidentally, if you do plug in the answer for D, you're good to go. Does that all make sense? Do you guys see that on 13 and 14? Please, in huge bold letters on 553, please write down the word equivalent. Equivalent means I can plug in numbers. That's what you should have written on 553. Because you're going to see it on the math test, on every math test you take for the SAT. Okay, guys, so that's it for today. Let me know if you guys have any other questions. Ryan, if everybody seems to be doing well, that's awesome. This is great, and again, we're going to continue to do this throughout the month of March. Remember the word equivalent. Those were great questions. 13 and 14 were great ones to go over. Okay, I'm going to send Dan all of everything that I want you guys to do for homework, and then I'm going to ask you guys to send in your observations for both videos. If you've already watched both videos, I want you to either re-watch them or watch the math videos and come up with 3 questions and 3 observations, and then email. Okay, and then send me it in an email to admin@startutors.net, and we'll receive those. Either me or one of our tutors will receive those, so we'll be able to see that for next Wednesday. Okay, you guys are doing a great job. I want you to keep working hard. We'll keep working on this stuff. You're doing a great job. Great questions on 13 and 14. If you guys have any questions this weekend while you're watching the videos, don't be afraid to reach out. Let me know. Otherwise, great job today, guys. Hopefully nobody has any tests today or tomorrow. If you do, good luck. Otherwise, have a great weekend, and I will see you guys next Wednesday. Great job, guys. Oh, sorry. Wait. Let's go over it. Sorry, I just saw this before I ended. Let's go over 8 and 11 real quick, too. We got time. 8 and 11. Sorry. We're doing 8 and 11. Don't leave yet. Sorry for anybody that's 8 and 11. Let's do it. Okay, so 8, right? Which of the following could be an equation in the graph of the function shown in the plan above? That looks wildly difficult, guys. Okay? But again, one of the things we want to remember for number 8, in Algebra 2 class, we talked about this idea of roots, right? We have these roots. And all a root is, right? All a root is where we cross the x-axis. Okay, and that's also what we call zeros, right? We call these zeros. So can everybody write this down? X-intercepts and roots. If you see those words, they're very important words, and they all mean the same thing. Okay, and the reason those are important is because this is how you identify the graph of the function. So right here, it looks like we have what? Oh, my graph is off, by the way. This should be like this. Just like that, right? Right here we have x equals 1. So right here we have 1 comma 0. Right next to it we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 comma 0 is this point right here. Okay, and then this point is at 6, 0. And you guys will remember how we solve for this graph is if you guys have x minus 1 times x minus 4 times x minus 6, right? That's how you solve for the roots or the zeros of an equation, and you set it equal to 0, right? You're solving for the zeros. X minus 1 equals 0, so x is equal to 1, and that's where it's going to cross on the graph, if you guys remember that from Algebra 2. Okay, so you immediately, if you know that, you can immediately eliminate answer choices A and C. And then the tricky part is, guys, and this is why this one's a little bit harder, is because when you have a parabola that just touches at one point like this, you have to know that this is actually a square, right? Because this is just a parabola. It touches at one point and goes up. So it's actually x minus 6 squared. And that's one, if you guys picked answer choice, if you picked B instead of D, I can see why, right? If you knew the zeros idea, then this is just a thing to remember, that if it only touches at the point and doesn't actually go through the x-axis, it just touches and then starts going back up, that means that it's a squared term. That's just a rule, so it's not like you have to be overwhelmed by that. It just, if you remember that, if it touches at one point and starts going back up, then it's a squared term. So that's why it's answer choice D. Ryan, does that make sense to everybody? Let me try to get to 11 real quick, because I know you guys got to get going. Okay, number 11. Number 11 says, the function f is defined by f of x equals if a... Okay, guys, this is another good example of a question that looks a lot harder than it is. Okay, because remember, anytime we get a function rule, f of x is equal to x squared minus x, plus x minus 12. Anytime we have a function rule, they're giving us that. Anytime we have that function rule, if they say f of a, right? If they say f of a, all they're saying, right? So they say f of a is equal to f of 3. Well, all they're saying is f of a, then, we're just going to plug this number in, remember? So we just get a squared plus a minus 12, right? Because we're just plugging a in for x. That's the point of this number, right? You just plug it in. And now they're saying a and 3 are equal. So now it's just f of 3 is equal to 3 squared, because these are equal, plus 3 minus 12. We get 9 plus 3 minus 12. 12 minus 12 equals 0. So that's one where the wording of that, hopefully, the wording confuses you a lot more than the actual question. That if you just remember that anytime you're given a function, f of x equals, all you're doing, and this is just defined, if you guys can get this one, then if you can get this idea through, this idea that if you just, whatever's inside here, doesn't matter what it is, if it's a number, if it's a picture, if it's a variable, you just plug that in for x, and you can take it in 2 steps. F of a, well, I plug that in, and then I know a is equal to 3, just based on this, so I just plug in 3 and we go through it. Does that make sense, Ryan? Is that everybody good for number 11? Two great questions, guys. Again, I'm super glad that after we went through the other 2, you guys decided to ask 2 more questions. You can't ask enough questions. Okay, those were great questions, all of them. 8, 11, the reason they're great, 8, 11, 13, and 14, is because I guarantee without a shadow of a doubt those 4 questions will show up on the April in-school test. Those exact questions. If you guys can memorize those concepts, you're good to go. Rewatch this. Keep practicing. I guarantee those concepts will show up on the April in-school test. Guaranteed. Oh, did I do the math wrong there, guys? A is less. What did I do wrong there? A, f of 3. I'm an idiot. I'm just what's the value of a? A is equal to 3. Was the answer A for this one? And please don't say that I went through that whole thing. Oh wait, what did I do wrong? Oh, sorry guys. Yeah. Sorry. You're right. I solved here for f of 3 or f of a. Right, so now we have to plug this back in. Sorry, we have to plug this 0 back in. I'm an idiot. It's a little bit harder, but not too much. A squared, right, minus a plus 12. Because this is now equal to 0, we plugged it all in with the 3. Now we can set f of a, right? F of a is equal to 0 because f of 3 equals 0. We went through that whole process. So now we set all of this equal, and we get a, right? We factor this down. We're now set equal to 0, so we're good. We can factor. We get a plus 3 times a minus 4, right? A plus 3 times a minus 4. Oh, I'm sorry. A, yeah. This should be minus, right? Yeah, this is minus, and this is plus. Yeah, a minus 3 times a plus 4, which gives us equal to 0. So a is equal to positive 3 or negative 4 if we solve for that. And it says a has to be less than 0, right, in the problem. So a is equal to negative 4, answer choice C. Thanks for catching that, guys. I'm an idiot. We solved it. We solved it all out, and I just didn't take it. You guys can see how easy it is to make simple mistakes. Fortunately, 0 wasn't an answer choice, but it's just as likely that I would have selected 3 because I was going too quickly trying to get done. Right, just like you guys, I was trying to get done. I was trying to rush so you guys could get out of here, because I knew you have to start class. And instead of doing it the proper way, I didn't read all the way through, and I made a simple mistake. It happens to me all the time, and that's why we need to be focused on not making simple mistakes. It happens to me, and so that's why I get so nervous, because I can't control that for you guys. So great observation that 0 is not an answer, and you just go plug in 0 and then solve by factoring. It's a pretty hard problem, but you guys can do that. It's still the same stuff you've been doing the whole time. It's just memorizing function rules. Okay, thank you guys for asking such great questions. I think you guys have to get out of here, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have to end here. But you guys are asking great questions. That was the best lesson we've had so far. Okay, that was awesome. This is going to be your homework. Keep it up. Keep up this momentum because we have the month of March, and then you guys got to take it in April. Okay, great job. Great job today, guys. I'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend.